Hey everyone, today I'm really happy to be joined by Brendan and Cherie, founders of Hollygov. Holly closed a $2.2 million seed round to tackle the government's hiring crisis. Over 1 million government jobs remain vacant, plagued by antiquated systems, processes, and data. This doesn't just impact the government, but also the communities and the people they're supposed to serve. Leveraging AI offers a massive opportunity to help make these systems a lot more frictionless and also completely change government departments. The team at Holly is hiring across the board, in particular in engineering, and most actively for a senior software engineer. If the mission sounds interesting to you, then drop me a message on alex@asterhq.com or DM me on LinkedIn or X, and those links will be in the description. I'll be speaking to more of our clients and digging into their mission and culture to help give you a better insight. If this type of content is helpful and you're an engineer, a designer, or a product manager, then give me a follow either on here or on X to get first access to new companies that we're working with. Enjoy the episode. Well, thank you both for being here. Really appreciate it.
Absolutely.
So I think what would be interesting is to hear a little bit more about the mission of Holly.
Yeah.
I was reading your Substack this morning about the Mamdani example, about how he was elected and he had about 25,000 applications to work for his administration within 24 hours. And some of the job titles was like blacksmith, director of puppeting, all these random classifications. And what I was actually really interested in terms of the article that you wrote was the impact that's going to have on what he actually needs to get done. So the bottleneck in terms of job classification and the actual flow of applying for a job means that he's not going to make any hires potentially until later 2026 or early 2027, like a year into his administration. So it was an interesting framing of the problem. And so I was really interested to hear more about that. What is the impact of 1 million jobs being open, or in Mamdani's case, 13,000 jobs being open, on communities, on society? And how do you frame the problem that Hollygov is solving for?
Sure. So our core conviction here is that everything we want government to be able to do, whether that's picking up your trash, solving crimes, turning a community, giving a community the vibrancy that it needs, depends on having the workforce that the public sector deserves. And the core bottleneck there is creating an efficient and effective way of bringing people into the public sector, giving them the tools they need to succeed, and then designing jobs that are worth working in.
Mm-hmm.
So what we do in Holly, we've identified that this core starting bottleneck, the place where things really start to go off the rails, are around designing jobs. Government jobs, you mentioned a blacksmith. I think there was a seamstress's apprentice. There's some really surprising ones.
Yeah.
And the problem here is that if you're trying to build an ambitious public sector, a public sector that's able to provide services to millions of Americans, and these are 24 million jobs in the country. There are a lot of people in the public sector. There's $3 trillion of payroll in the public sector. All of that depends on being able to not knock candidates out with the wrong requirements, the ability to attract people with roles that are worth doing, and then the ability to manage effectively. So that's where we're starting with Holly. And our mission in the long term is to turn that into a public sector that treats the public civil servants with hospitality and care, making these jobs that people want to do and want to do well.
Yeah, that makes perfect sense. Because I think one of the things that you highlight is this talent shortage that exists in public sector work. Part of that sounds like it's redesigning how are you like talking about public sector work as well, especially to a younger generation. I guess looking forward, there's so many different forces at work. There's obviously the AI that's going to have an impact on how government work is done, although that might take decades. How are you thinking about government careers, I guess, looking forward over the next few years? How does government start to appeal to a younger generation?
Yeah, I think the appeal is becoming more obvious with the impact of AI. I think we've seen a lot of private sector layoffs, a lot of instability in the private sector. And I think a couple years back too, I think like the hashtag government jobs was trending because people were interested in like, oh, you can have work-life balance, you can work with a mission. And now, you're not going to be afraid of like a layoff because these are protected jobs, often unionized, and you just have a more of a clear trajectory. So I think that combination of factors is really, really appealing, actually. And what we really want to do is help governments to also um, be able to explain the benefits, the mission, and just like help people see how appealing that is. I think people don't really know how to get into or access or even see those benefits. And so there's a little bit of a there's like a huge opportunity there to get all of these things, but and appeal to the younger generation, but they're just not
Mm.
kind of like able to find folks and market that opportunity well, which is what we think Holly can really step in to help and do.
Yeah. So it sounds like there's an element of communication. How do you communicate government
Mhm.
work to a younger generation? There's a infrastructure issue as well in terms of how applications are coming in, being looked at, being reviewed. And I was also reading about some of the HR departments
Mhm.
and some of the stories and examples there of just people's general like candidate experience applying for a government job. Um, from a product and engineering standpoint, how is Holly trying to solve for some of this? So, what does the product look like if I am a user on the government side, or if I'm, a head of HR for a government department? How am I engaging and interacting with Holly, and how do you describe Holly to your customers?
Yeah, so right now we're really focusing at the start of the whole process, which is how are governments defining a job? How are they writing the class specification, which is really that internal document that governs what a person is going to be responsible for in that role, and having a lot of clarity about what are the exact tasks and what their trajectory as well. For example, if someone's a business analyst one and then they move into business analyst two and three, how do their roles and responsibilities and also their salary um, grow over time to help really shape the trajectory for someone. So we help people generate these specifications and then also have competitive salaries. So we have all of the salary data. The benchmarking process is very localized. So if you're a jurisdiction, you would be looking at the 10 jurisdictions around you to identify, okay, this is what is at market for a firefighter right now. And you would be determining what's that like competitive market salary. So we process all of that data, have it in the platform. You can just click a button and you can see, oh, this is the market rate and my salary is X% below, so I should shift and adjust. And we're building out a lot of other reporting to help you make sure that your the way you're defining this job, for example, is compliant or equitable and up to standards, and that you can really design that workforce well. So that's kind of where we're starting, and that, of course, flows into how you're defining the job description and reaching out to candidates and all of that, which is part of what we want to build into the platform in the future.
Hmm.
In the long term, we see Holly as touching every single touch point for how a person interacts with government. So
Hmm.
with their government jobs. So as they're looking for jobs, evaluated as a candidate, performance management when they're in, and then, offboarding, knowledge management, all of that, just a full suite AI native HRIS, human
Yeah.
resource information system. And we're just starting at the beginning of like how you define that job. The really like class and compensation module is what we're
Yeah.
building now.
Yeah. Yeah. It's a very interesting problem to be going after as well. And I'm curious about, I guess, from an engineering standpoint and from a strategy standpoint as
Mm.
well, you're going into probably one of the more like archaic legacy system orientated arenas anywhere, right?
Yeah.
Um, I'm assuming like there's aspects around compliance as well that
Mhm.
becomes a bit of a challenge. Every department, I assume, is slightly different. Um, how are you approaching that? What are some of the hurdles or obstacles that you're seeing? Some of the opportunities for, maybe an engineer joining the team is able to sort of really leverage and sort of get their hands into.
Yeah, the way to think about this is that governments have more checks and balance than the private sector for good reason, to
Hmm.
prevent corruption, to prevent graft, waste, fraud, and abuse. However, that's turned into a death by a thousand forms in the public sector. It's
Yeah.
jobs that become less meaningful because
Yeah.
you're filling out your W3072A, right?
Mhm.
And I think that might be a real form. But the consequence of this is that these jobs become less meaningful and less effective. And so what Holly is able to do is maintain effective checks and balances, maintain effective processes while turning all of this clerical work into strategic and analytic work for public sector workers. And
Mhm.
so where this really is only possible because of AI. This is only possible because of the advances over the last 5 years.
That's interesting.
What we're able to do I'll give you one small example. We're able to solve this problem of that Cherie mentioned, benchmarking against the 10 or 12 agencies around you. What this means is that if you're one government looking at an administrative analyst 3, you need to compare your administrative analyst 3 against the 1,000 class specs or job descriptions of all of your peers. And all of your peers, one of them calls it a management analyst,
Yeah.
one of it calls it an administrative assistant. And you can only really solve this by looking at the actual duties. We think about similarity scoring across these different specifications in the same way that the government would make a decision if they sat down one of their staff members and had them sift through 1,000 sheets of paper.
Yeah.
This becomes a pretty complex engineering decision for what's the most effective way to match one spec to 10,000 different documents in a way that is verifiable, explainable, and effective. But the way that we get there is by understanding the public sector workflow and then turning that into something that we can do on the engineering side
Yeah.
effectively and turn into a real product.
Yeah.
We've had clients say to us, oh, we'd print the specs out and put them on a table and look at them side by side. And now as an engineer, you get to take that process and
Yeah.
click of a button and that analysis is there for you. And I think that can be really gratifying to see that happen as the impact. I'll give another example, which is, we kind of think about government as this like the largest producer of unstructured data. And so you're getting an opportunity to turn that into a usable structure very quickly and save just a lot of time. We had one client recently who through city council, they had agreed on a new template for all of their job descriptions. That was different from their existing template in terms of like, okay, now it has to be definition, qualification of duties, these different categories. And so they had someone that was manually, copy pasting different sections and of one Word document to another format. And this was taking her hundreds of hours.
Yeah.
And so in our product, you could just upload it and then it would automatically, you would use LLM to reformat it into this new description. And so for every engineering hour that we spent on this feature builds, we saved them like 15 hours of time. And that's just really exciting. I think from an engineering perspective, you are saving so much time for government workers where instead of copy pasting from, one Excel spreadsheet into another or one Word doc into another and kind of doing that route clerical work, they can actually spend it thinking about like, well, what should a person be doing in this role? What's the best use of a business analyst and just more strategic work that is kind of what the government really wants their workers to be doing. So yeah, I think there's just such a high ROI on like every engineering hour in terms of the impact that you're making for government and working at Holly. So
Yeah.
yeah, I think that's what would be really exciting about joining us.
Yeah. That makes a lot of sense. Yeah. I think like AI in government has an opportunity to have a massive impact in terms of how overworked government workers are, but also how underserved a lot of communities are by government. And I think that underserving has kind of created a lot of distrust as well of government. It's also kind of new terrain, like bringing AI into everything now, right? Bringing in agentic workflows into like new industries, and the government is one where there's obviously so much rich data as well that you can capture that can also lead to more product development and more impact. How do you approach conversations about AI with those stakeholders? Are you often met with a lot of obstacles or pushback? is it about like creating these magic moments where they suddenly see, wow, this is going to completely change my day to day.
Yeah.
But how do you approach it, even for, I guess from a sort of sales process or from an education process of, especially of an audience that isn't necessarily the most tech savvy as well?
The magic moments are important, but it's on us to build trust, and build trust by showing that we've approached their processes and their organizations with curiosity and a belief that the work that they do is important. So just yesterday, I was meeting with a 1,000,000-person population county, and the director told me that she sees what we do as the biggest advancement in classification and compensation, this benchmarking work that we do, the biggest advancement in the last 100 years or since it was created. I've had people in meetings, onboardings, come to me genuinely tears in their eyes with the ways that they've been in the past shouted at for doing mind-numbing work that then pisses somebody off, or I don't know if I'm allowed to swear, but but pisses somebody off because they're just getting told to say no all the time. And instead they have an opportunity to go into these conversations with data and understanding. And that is truly empowering. That empowers people who don't get that empowerment enough. But the trust aspect, the only way that we can get there is if we're able to show that we've approached every single decision with the thoughtfulness that it deserves. So with a single class specification, we provide similarity explanations that would be A+ work for an analyst on a class and comp team. We provide sources and specific annotations that bring us directly to the document so that they can trust and verify. And then when we're onboarding with our customers, most of what we're doing is listening and watching them interact with the platform, and just a little bit of it is us telling them what to do. So it has to come from a position of respect of the customer.
And I guess that probably has a downstream effect in terms of the culture you're building, right? I think everybody in the organization needs to like feel the mission of what you're building, but also like have this desire to want to build trust, even from like engineering decisions that are made, right? You don't want someone that's coming in and taking shortcuts, especially in something that's so high stakes as government hiring. How do you describe Holly's culture to potential new hires, and talk to me a bit more about like the culture that you're building there?
Yeah, for sure. Specifically, across the whole company, I think there's a couple of things that we want to make sure that everyone feels very empowered by, and one of them, of course, is the mission. And part of how we express that mission is we think about like building with, not for. So building very carefully with our users. I think that's having been in sort of the civic tech, like government space, a lot of government users or a lot of people who have been marginalized by technology don't really feel like it's being built, with them, that somebody else is just kind of making decisions and not really caring about how they experience technology. And so we make it a huge priority to talk to our customers and get their insights, and also make sure that on the engineering team, like all of the engineers have an opportunity. So our engineer has had opportunity to, go and meet with clients and join on sites and join customer calls and really get an experience for, okay, these are the issues and understanding of how things are happening. And then another part of it is really that level of responsiveness to the customer that they're not super used to. So, I think with some companies that they've worked with, vendors, it might be, oh, here's a bug, and then, come back after a week and fix it. And so what we really want to create is a culture where, hey, like if a customer flags something and there's a bug, we let them know, hey, we're on it, and get back to them pretty quickly. So it's kind of a private sector standard of responsiveness that we're bringing in. And as part of that, I think we, to fulfill that to our customer, think a lot about making sure everyone on the team has agency and feels that responsibility to be responsive and work at that pace to ensure that the customer feels like heard at all times.
Yeah, that makes perfect sense. Last question I have for you both is, just what the future looks like from a product perspective and from a team perspective. How do you see Holly looking in a year or 2 years' time? It's hard to think beyond a year these days, but a year or 2 years' time, what does the impact look like for Holly on government departments and government teams?
Yeah. So I'll speak to it on a couple levels. So one of them is sort of the product evolution in terms of what kind of role the product is playing. We're kind of at this kind of move past where we started was okay thinking of Holly as kind of more like a similar to like a clerical worker or a data platform where we're bringing in all of that data, putting it in one place, and the next step is to do a deeper level of intelligence and analysis similar to an HR analyst,
Yeah.
like providing basic reports and that kind of thing. And as we think about the future of the product, it's really moving towards like it being more of a co-pilot or sort of a advisor where it can say, hey, like, look at your class specs. These are the issues that you should be thinking about for your workforce. And so we really want to take it from, a class and comp sort of assistant to like a
Yeah.
partner.
A party.
And so I think that's where we want to get more agentic, more intelligent with our core module that we're working on now. Later this year, we also are going to be working on an additional module that is in the space of providing more insights across like different types of domains and more broadly across your workforce. So um, as we think about bringing in engineering talent, the engineering talent that we bring on would either have an opportunity to really grow the existing module and the capabilities, and especially like the agentic and intelligent capabilities of that existing module, or help spearhead and lead the development of the new module that we're working on, which would be releasing later this year. So we're really excited about both of those things. And yeah, all of that really brings us to that long-term vision of becoming that AI native HRIS for the public sector, just really helping be that infrastructure of the government workforce. And so I think there's a lot of really exciting engineering problems and challenges to be solving as part of that, and just really excited to meet people who would be one a part of that.
The other thing is that we're building a big business. We are building an organization that has grown stunningly quickly over the last year.
I was just going to ask about that. Yeah.
We grew our ARR by 53 times from quarter two to quarter four of 2025. And we are continuing to accelerate with the largest and most complex organizations in the country. Multi-million person organizations like Santa Clara County, San Mateo County, Contra Costa County, San Bernardino County, in the heart of the Bay Area, which is the most sophisticated organizations,
Yeah.
as well as those with some of the greatest service needs. We've been able to work in environments where they've said we've never bought an AI product before, and we've worked in environments where they have a new one every week. We've been able to do the same thing while growing in a lean and constrained way. We were profitable on a bookings basis over the last 6 months.
Wow.
So putting all of this together, we see ourselves growing as the fastest and most, I would say, unprecedented GovTech product in history.
Yeah.
That's the goal. And if what we have on the roadmap, if what you're going to be able to build on the roadmap over the next year and beyond can come to fruition, we think it will be a no-brainer that every government in the country, which is around 80,000 governments.
Wow.
It's a number that surprised
crazy.
me when I heard it too. That will make it a no-brainer for every one of them to work with us, and to work with us in a long-term and substantial way.
I think what people underappreciate as well, if they haven't worked in GovTech, is how sticky these relationships are.
Yeah.
Right. So that from an engineering standpoint, from an investment standpoint, you don't have to worry about the customer, in a PLG environment, just canceling the contract after a month, or much shorter, even in SaaS, like now a lot of contracts now are 12 months, right? Once they onboard you, they're probably never gonna offboard you, and so there's a massive opportunity to build with your customers, I think, as well. And what you can make work with even a small group of that 80,000 can scale exponentially quickly in many ways.
Yeah, our contracts are 3 to 5 years in most cases, And that means that from the reason why they're doing 5-year contracts with us is because, one, they believe we will be around and delivering services for those full 5 years, which we agree.
Yeah.
2, we will be building out the product enormously over those 5 years. So the things that we will be delivering in year 5 will be night and day from the first year, which gives us that ability to grow with the customer. And then 3 is they believe that the impact today is worth every penny and then some. And it's a weighty obligation to provide services for 5 years, but it's a tremendous opportunity.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a really interesting feeling being at a company where we're first to the market. Like I've had the privilege of being here and then another company where it's also just like a unique player, a unique offering. And I will say everything is a little bit easier in a sense. You can feel it, and especially I think Brendan can feel it in the sales conversations when there's no other AI native competitor that's offering what we're offering right now. We're the very first. And I think that contributes to faster sales conversations because they're like, I have no other competitor that can offer anything close to what is being offered right now at the level of like speed and responsiveness. And we know that won't be forever, but we are trying to, lock that in and make sure that they understand that, we are planning to continue to offer different capabilities that are a touch above everything else you can get in the market. And so I think you can really feel that on the engineering team, and you feel that in the feedback that you get from the things that you're building.
Awesome. We just need to get this interview to Mamdani next.
We're right across the street. Our New York office is 250 Broadway.
Yeah. So to
City
try and
council folks in the building.
time it well to bump into him.
I
think he takes the subway as well, so maybe you can catch him.
We'll see him on our commute one day.
People think government sales cycles are 12 to 18 months, and that's true for most companies. For our enterprise clients, our 30 enterprise clients, our sales cycle was 3.5 months. That's
quick.
Is about 4 times faster than you'd expect to see in a company like us. And the reason is because we're providing something absolutely vital and nobody else is able to do it. So when we get started with a customer, we get started with all of their peers, and then we grow out in this incredible network effect.
Yeah.
And the result of that is a lot of good pressure, I think, on the engineering team.
Something we do that the engineering team supports is having customized demos. So when you come to a conversation, all of your data is already in there. So you're really visualizing what it's going to look like from day one for you to work. And then their incentive is that experience that I saw, like those insights that I saw in the demo. Once I ink that contract, I get to have that. And so it creates a lot of that. And I think that's really exciting for them to be able to see that. And I think, something I think we've learned is from the psychology of a buyer, HR director here, they're willing to stick their neck out for something that they think is going to add value, but it's not every day that they come across something that they really feel like will have value. And when they do, relative to the risk that it takes to put themselves out there to try to get something like that, they are willing to move on that. So that's been exciting to see that in the go-to-market.
Awesome. It's great to hear. So I did say last question before. This is really the last question. You're growing the team. What are you hiring for at the moment?
Yeah, so we are hiring for a couple of roles, but a big goal for us this year is growing our engineering team. We've had a pretty slim engineering team thus far, but we're looking for senior software engineers to kind of, as mentioned, help build out the existing module and also build out new modules that are upcoming. So some really great opportunities. Primarily looking for folks who have a good backend focus, interested in data, AI, LLMs. So lots of opportunity to help build the product.
Fantastic. Well, I appreciate you both coming in today and sharing more about Holly. And looking forward to hearing more soon.
Yeah,
Great.
Thank you so much, Alex.
Thanks so much.